instance when you use critical thinking at your job?
At my job, I have to critically think all the time about how I interact with customers because they come from such diverse backgrounds.
Describe an instance in which you changed how you interacted with someone at your job after you learned more about them.
If I'm chatting with a customer and I learn that they're, let's say, from outside of the country, I often really soften my entire demeanor just so they understand that I'm not approaching them from a hostile point of view and I want to genuinely hear what they have to say.
Describe an instance in which you changed how you interacted with someone at your job after you learned more about yourself.
If I'm interacting with the customer and I realize that we both have different financial backgrounds, like as I'm talking to them, I'm realizing, oh, this person doesn't have the same concerns as me. I oftentimes withdraw from the conversation a little bit just because it makes me reflect a bit more on my financial situation, which is totally irrelevant, but it just makes me feel like I can't relate to that person, so I just stop prompting a conversation.
At a time when somebody did something completely weird and you tried to rationalize why they did that, what did you come up with?
In the workplace? In the workplace, I do remember conversing with a colleague and then my manager comes out of nowhere and kind of insults our work ethic because I was conversing with my colleagues. I tried to rationalize it by just understanding that it's his role as the manager, but at the same time, it didn't make sense because where I work, team relations are very important.
Describe a time when you used critical thinking at your job.
Recording. Times I've used critical thinking at my job, I would say maybe every day I'm there, I guess, because I'm a host, and since I see people, and then the place I work at is 24 hours, I get there and I have to analyze what's already going on, and based on what's going on, then I conduct who I put in which section for whatever server is showing up that day, and if a big party comes in, we have these small little tables of 4, maybe 2 people, but then I have to sit big parties 16, 20. It's I don't know, it's math.
Changed how you interacted with someone at your job based on something you learned about them.
I definitely change the way I interact with people based on how they present themselves, because when I first got there I had this boss, and you don't act like how you would act towards your friends to your boss, so I acted more professional than I do now. But now that I know her personality and I know that I can joke around with her and she doesn't see me as oh, do this, and it's more of we're on the same level. To me, she's my peer. Obviously she has more power over me, but I act more friendly since she has shown me friendship.
Describe an instance in which you changed how you interacted with someone at your job after you learned more about yourself.
So I've had this job for almost 2 years now, and when I first started, I took the job, I guess, very seriously. I just took everything that happened at work personally. So if people were yelling at me, I don't know, people are very aggressive when they're hungry. So when people would yell at me, I would take it personal and get upset because I'm stressed because I have to do this, I have to do that. Because hosts actually, it's not a hard job, but there's a lot to be done. So I used to internalize it, and it would make me stressed. But now, I realize that it's not my problem. I can do what I'm supposed to do without getting stressed. I can take my time, and it's, I don't know, I guess it's kind of helped me better in the job and then personally.
Tell me about a time when somebody did something weird, either at your job or at school or anything in general.
I'll tell you about my job, right?
I'm recording now.
Okay. So let me tell you about this. Do I have to be professional or can I?
No, you can be however you want.
And I can talk about anything, right?
Of course. It's college. We're college now.
Okay. So this was when I was 17. I'd been in this job for maybe 4 months, 5 months at the time, and there's different types of people you work with. We have the older ladies, the younger ladies, the older men, the younger men, right? So my job is filled with a lot of different types of multiculturalness, not from America. So I guess socially there's different rules. And I was talking, actually I was minding my business, and then one of them stops me. It's I think like a 40, 50-year-old man, and there's like 3 of them at my job. He stops me, and he's saying, he's like, Renee, can you help us real quick? And I'm like, sure, what is it? And like I had already known from context, he wanted me to send pornography from his phone to the other man's phone. And that experience, I think, is something I'll never forget.
Like regular?
Like multiple different clips of from one guy's phone to the other one. And they both have like Androids and they have WhatsApp or whatever. And like I barely know how to do that. But they're like, but they gave me a warning. They gave me a warning. But regardless, they were like, by the way, it's bad. And I was like, regardless, to me, I think it's weird that they would show a minor that, even if they did give me a disclaimer. I did it anyway, but
If you don't mind me
that's how that
asking,
went.
where do you think they're from?
I'm pretty sure they're Haitian and Jamaican.
Haitian
They're
and Jamaican?
Jamaican. They're Jamaican.
Fine for that.
They're definitely Jamaican. I remember.
That's crazy, but I don't even have to ask you the second part of the question. I like how you rationalized it already, and it's like, you think because they're from like a different country, it's like, maybe it's regular over there, I would think, or something. I never heard about Jamaicans doing that, or Haitians either.
The camera woman hasn't either.
Those might have been,
Yeah.
those were definitely some weird people.
Neither had to do with
What?
Yeah.
background.
They never made any provocative comments towards me, but it was just a weird experience.
Yeah, like you were just the middleman in between that, but you weren't. They weren't
Seemed
trying to
so
involve.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For me to see the videos, because I saw the videos. And it wasn't, I think that's irrelevant. Anyway.
I'd like to go into detail about this, but I don't want my teacher.
Yeah.
Hi, teacher.
Yeah.
All right, cut. Describe an instance when you use critical thinking in your job.
So, as a teacher, anything can go throughout the day. It could be code reds, lockdowns, fights, students falling behind another curriculum. So, to keep everyone on the same page, I would have to first figure out what's the best strategies to get my kids on the same page. Figure out where all the downfalls are, figure out where their weak points are, and what keeps them engaged. So, because there's over 100 kids every day, I have a lot of variety I have to choose from to find the best situation. But it's normal for a teacher.
Alright, next question. Describe an instance in which you changed how you interacted with someone after you learned more about them.
Again, it's another everyday situation because you never know what students are coming or bringing to school. So I can assume off of test scores a kid could be a certain way. I can assume off of how they carry themselves or the attitude they walk in, but you never know when that will change or how they got those scores or if they even care. So every day is a new story untold or unfolding for the student. So.
Alright. And that brings us into the next question. Is very similar to the last question, but instead of how they change, it's about something in how you change. Like, let me just give you the question. Describe a moment when you changed how you interacted with someone at your job after you learned more about yourself.
Oh, that's really easy. So you guys know, I never wanted to be a teacher in the first place. So when I came into teaching, and I started getting used to it and learning my students and learning how to transfer the information from myself to them, more quality skills came out of me. Being a mentor, being a role model, being a leader. Things that I've always thought I would be able to do or have been doing in my life, I have seen exponential growth in how I interact and making sure I'm always on the top of my game. Even when I'm not, I have to make sure I am because of who I'm in charge of and who I'm leading and who I'm trying to teach and mentor. So.
Alright, so last question. Name a time when like a student or a coworker at your job has done something very strange and out the box. Describe that and like how you tried to rationalize why they did what they did.
So, for the most part, that's going to be another everyday situation with students. I don't know where my students are, even my coworkers. I don't know where these people come from at first. So, I'm just trying to think. Either it could be a cultural difference or a childhood being raised type of situation, an upbringing. That's the word. I most try to think it has to be something done at home or something they memorized or mimicked from their environment first off every time. So, with that being said, I try not to judge. You know, judging is bad. Whatever take you want to put on it, just that's not our job to do. So, I'll ask questions before I judge anybody anytime. But I'm trying to think of a specific situation. There's so many.
Take your time.
Oh, okay. So I have a kid who likes to over-explain himself. You can ask him like, what color's an apple, and he'll tell you what region the apple came from, what type of apple it is. He'll tell you specifically red. He'll tell you about the skin and the fiber. Tell you what tree it came from, who picked it, and not to get into his details too much, but it's because he's always picked on, and he always has to have a reason to explain himself to justify his reasoning. So I told him, it's like, you can always tell me whatever you want to tell me, but simplest answers can do. I'm not judging you. I'm not here to make you feel bad any type of way. And I want you to be sure of yourself. So over time, he got more sure of himself. And I can ask him a simple question. He'll give me a simple answer. And I'm like, you comfortable with that? And he's like, yeah, I feel good about this. So that's like my favorite one. Because he was just being traumatized or antagonized all his life. Mm-hmm. And he finally found a place where he didn't have to.
You helped him to like sort that out?
I would say yeah. I don't remember if he ever went to guidance. I told him he could go to guidance.
Do you think that would help necessarily?
I would say 80% of the time, yes, because they're trained specialists. I can always go off of my experiences, but you know, like I said, they're trained. That's where their degree is at. So usually it helps. But I feel like he was comfortable enough to talk to me, and after those couple weeks of just understanding each other and understanding where he was coming from, I saw a lot of progress. So I don't think it ever got out of hand or anything like that. It was good.
All right.
That was good. Thank you.
All right, hello. It's after the video, and I'm here to just do a quick little like summary review type thing, or conclusion, I guess, about what I think about the video and my contestants' answers. So like, first up, I'd like to answer the question of how were my interview participants using psychology as part of their jobs? And to that, I would say like they're using it in very practical ways, especially Mr. Thompson. He's a teacher. I was actually very glad to interview him about this specifically because I feel like it just fits the part perfectly. Being a teacher and everything, or just somebody who has to interact with kids, students, people who are just like psychologically, not necessarily unstable, but I guess like undeveloped. So you'd have to use psychology a lot to just balance things out, you know? So that was a very great interview, and I think I'd say for him using psychology in a way to just balance out how, you know, crazy sometimes the kids can be, to just set them on the right path, and even more so to just like make sure the kids are learning and to have a good time. You use psychology and everything, and you got to use psychology in like helping people to learn and to enjoy themselves as well. So that's for him. As for my other two contestants who are in somewhat similar situations, Rachel, I'd say she uses psychology to not necessarily the benefit of herself, but like to the benefit of, I guess, I'd say to just like, she uses psychology in a way to where she can stay safe. That's how psychology is supposed to be used sometimes as a safeguard, so that she doesn't have to interact. She doesn't have to like dangerously interact emotionally or physically with like certain customers, so that she can disengage from bad customers at her job. She uses psychology to just to just communicate properly with her coworkers as well. This is something that I believe many people use, and that's about it for her. Other than that, as for Rihanna, I think she uses psychology in a similar sense. Uh, I'm trying to think of her. I'm trying to think of when she was using psychology, but all I could think of right now is that the last question. But let me think about it. Yeah. So for Rihanna, I say she uses psychology in a similar sense to to please the customers, to make sure her job is going well, and to communicate with people at a in a decent way, as well as to safeguard against certain dangerous things. That's how psychology is supposed to be used. So that's that question. Now for the next question is, was I surprised by any of the answers my interviewers slash participants gave, or was the use of psychology in their jobs what I was expecting? So I guess I have two answers for this. First and foremost, I'd say I was definitely surprised by Rihanna's answer to my fourth question about what subject. It was definitely very it was more funny than everything else, than anything else. It was a bit unexpected too, but it was welcome. Other than that, I'm not too surprised by the way they've used psychology. To be honest, yeah, I think they've used psychology in commonplace ways within their jobs, and they've used it correctly as well. That's how psychology is supposed to be used. So that's kind of that. As for what I was expecting, I was expecting just about that, and that's it.